Hello! So we're working a little bit on Aromas time today, so we'll just start with that.
I like it.
So first of all, welcome. So my name is Wayne Norton, and I'm on the steering committee of the Aromas Progressive Action League. And we're here today for a couple of very special reasons. The first is we want to celebrate Mother Earth, and at least in this community, cares about Mother Earth and is trying to save it. That may not be true of everyone in Washington, D.C., but we know where we stand, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And the other important reason we're here to celebrate is because APAL has been around for 1 year. And there's cake.
That's why we're here.
Bribery.
Let's take just a couple of minutes to say my personal thanks. You know, right after the November election, there were a bunch of us who were, well, scared is really not exactly the word, but it's pretty close. Very anxious, terrified, depressed is another word, about what happened at the election, and many of us were afraid that all those, the progress that we'd made in 8 years was all going to go away. We had reason to worry, as it turns out. But we started having just sort of spontaneous community meetings. We met a couple living rooms. And at one point, there were 50 people sitting in a living room in Aromas, from people who wanted to do something, who wanted to make sure that our values were represented. And, you know, in Aromas being the kind of community it is, Aromas just didn't want to be a resistance group. The people that came to these meetings didn't want to just be against anything. They wanted to be for something. So as we sort of progressed along our development, we wanted to make sure that in the name of our organization, that the word action was in there, and progressive, because those two words were really important to what we believe. We wanted to put progressive, I call them mainstream progressive values, into action, into the work in the world. And just some amazing work has happened over the years. On your chairs, you'll find a couple pieces of paper, but one of them is just like, what have we accomplished over the last year? It has really been impressive when you think of this small community and the amount of things that we've been able to do. It's, you know, I'm impressed, and, you know, I love living in Aromas, but I love it even more now. Thank you to everyone who has done their part to move this movement along and help create this movement. Thank you very much. So we have a special guest speaker today, but before we do that, I want to remind everyone that, you know, freedom isn't free. We actually have to pay for things. We have to pay for this hall. Although the Grange has been very generous and we're grateful as to the hall, but you know, they do charge, and they should. This is a great community venue, and we need to protect it. We also have the things that we do, like the posters and those kinds of things. They also have a cost. So you know, be as generous as you can. We appreciate everything that you can donate. So thank you very much. By the way, on the back table are the financials. Roy Goodman, our treasurer, has put the financials on the back table, so anyone can see, you know, the money that you may have donated in the past and how we're spending it and where we are exactly. It's all there. We really want to be transparent. This is, you know, a movement about the people in Aromas and about what we stand for, and we want to be really transparent in what we do. So that's back for you to take a look at. Okay. I'm anxious for the cake. Did you see that cake? All right, so I'm going to introduce, I wasn't saying all these. One of the downsides of living in the community for so long is that when the kids grow up and forget they're married, and they actually have other names. Amalia Hansen is going to introduce our speaker.
Our speaker today is Dr. Ivano Aiello of Moss Landing Marine Laboratories in San Jose State. He is the department chair at Moss Landing Marine Labs and also a professor, geological,
There you go. Notes help.
sorry, geological oceanographer. So today he will be introducing us to Moss Landing Marine Labs, and I just want to point out that some of the work that the labs do is at the slough. So if any of you are Alcorn slough lovers like me, then thank you, Moss Landing Marine Labs. So if you could please join us.
So my name is Harvey, and I'm your neighbor from Moss Landing. Actually, we're coming up, so yeah, next door. And I'm very happy to be here today. It's a really interesting crowd. I'm excited to hear about your grass movement here. We need this. I'm really excited about Moss Landing to talk about this lab that's next door to you. Probably really one of the most advanced research labs in the country for the marine science and wetland studies and coastal studies, and an invitational facility, also a research facility, and also very relevant in terms of climate change. So a lot of research we do, and you'll see, I'm kind of going ahead now. I actually teach a class on climate change every year, so I'm very aware of the problems related to the various issues related to it. I can also scream. I'm used to not having a microphone, so it's very special. Okay, well, so here's Moss Landing. Who else who has been to Moss Landing before? Oh, most of you. Okay. So have you been to the new lab? Okay, so here's the great news. Next weekend we're going to have open house. 2 days we're open. Usually there are about 3,000 people showing up, so it's a really big deal. And you'll have a chance to access our lab. All the labs are open. There are students. Actually, it's a student-driven initiative. There's food. There's a puppet show for you kids, and there's a lot of activities that you can do and learn about the oceans and what we do there. So I'll remind you that at the end of my presentation. But that's a perfect time. The other thing that's perfect is Earth Day today, and I'm a geologist. So awesome. And so here's our lab, brand new building, and you'll see how that's came to be. Okay, so where are we? I'm a geologist. I need to start with a bunch of earthquakes and faults. And the lab is actually located in the middle of Monterey Bay, which is an amazing place on Earth because can you click one? Is that animation? So that's where we are. And we're right at the head of the Monterey Canyon, which is one of the deepest seafloor features in the west coast of the United States. So that's why we get whales coming all the way to the shore, basically. Also, we have the ability to look at deep sea processes next to the beach. So really an amazing location. But as you notice also by all the yellow spots, it's a very active, geologically speaking, area. And next clip will show you is the Monterey Canyon. Another clip will show you the San Andreas fault system, and that's where we are here.
Thank you.
We are right next to the lake boundary. Like us. And so we're very close to the San Andreas fault, as you many of you guys know. Actually, I come here on field trips with my class. If you go school road, you can actually drive on the fault. And actually, does anyone know why Aromas is called as such?
The hot springs.
The hot springs. So what's Aromas? What does it mean? Perfect. Yeah, because of the hot springs, because of the
Sulfur.
hydrogen that comes out through the fall. So fault systems are scary in a way, but they're also fundamental in terms of cycling chemical. Please.
We prefer thinking we're aromas because of the beautiful apricot blossoms.
The first reason is because of the apricot blossom, but also because of the stinky, rotten smell, which I love. So, when I take my students for a field trip here, so we put down the windows and what do you do? It's okay, you guys tell me where's the fault. What do you mean? Just smell. And you can smell it as soon as you cross it. I get excited. So it's a very unique place for marine geologists like me made just like you. We've got amazing ocean access to the ocean, also amazing land and geology. Next slide, please. Okay, so what's Moss Landing? Moss Landing is part of the California State System, the largest university in the country. 29 campuses, 500,000 students, a number of 4,000 faculty, so it's a huge, huge university. And we are part of the system. We are part of it, but also very independent. And although our main campus, our reference campus, our administrative campus is San Jose State University. We are part of a consortium, so there are different universities that contribute to our program. There are 7 of them. You can see them. They are outlined by the blue line. Next slide. And here's a little bit of a story about our campus. It started in the 60s. Actually, the location search started in the 60s, but actually the lab was established in 1966. So we just had our 50th anniversary celebration 2 years ago. It was a really great event. And here so you can see some of the timeline. I can't see anything, so I'm not sure. Well, you can see some of the major steps, but can you go to the next slide? I just want to talk to you about, this is our old lab actually. So the old lab wasn't located out in the hill. It was actually down on the beach, on Moss Landing Beach. Embarking right now is next door. This is the old pier, the old Moss Landing Pier. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It was demolished 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And this was our campus. It was they finished actually the new wing that you see here in 1988. Well, guess what happened? Next slide. A lot of great effort. In 1989, because of liquefaction, probably not for me. Because of liquefaction, the shaking turned the soil into gel. So the whole thing spread and collapsed. Major damage, no injuries. However, they had to demolish the lab. And for 10 years, next slide, the lab was located in trailers in Salinas. The marine lab in Salinas in trailers is not really the same. But actually, the program survived, actually grew during those years. Actually, we're very thankful for Salinas to provide such a great space. But finally, in 2000, the new lab was built, and it's an amazing facility. I really recommend you guys come. It's a green building. It's just really an astonishing place, and I'm very lucky to work there. Well, actually, this is me with my class at the Pinnacles when we go through the caves. So we are a master's program. So our major type of education is graduate level, although we do have undergraduate students coming from different campuses, mainly San Jose State and CSUMB. And we have about 100 graduate students every year. And we do very different things. So that's another exciting thing about Moss Landing. You see, I'm a geologist here, but my colleagues are vertebrate ecologists, and then we have chemical researchers. So there's a lot of different types of science that we do. The students really learn about the complexity of the natural environment, and not just one single discipline. And this is really important to understand important issues in our time, like climate change, for instance. So I'm going to give you a real breakdown of the faculty. It's a very small faculty. We have a very young vertebrate ecologist, Gideon McDonough, who works in Antarctica mainly. Moss Landing is everywhere in the world, by the way. We really tend to have collaboration across the globe, the work side. So we have a vertebrate ecologist, Mike Grange, is our phycologist. He works mostly on kelp. And he's actually leading the Moss Landing involvement in the Stanley Innovation Smart Farm System. I don't know if you heard about it, but it's about growing sustainability. It's all about sustainability, recycling, growing in a sustainable way. And kelp can be the food of the future. And then we have a vertebrate ecologist who works on DNA. Actually, he's been working on the tsunami debris coming from the Fukushima earthquake, which migrated all the way here and brought invasive species, piggybacking on the stuff that was floating from Japan. Tom Collins, a physical oceanographer, who looks at waves, internal waves and waves. And then we have Nick Welschmeyer, who's a biological oceanographer, who looks at plankton, also ballast water, invasive species. Invasive species is a really big issue today. And Scott Hamilton, who's there's a special effect in clip, who's not the skater, but clip. Is it coming?
Oh, I'm not seeing it here.
It's frozen. Just click. Don't click. Yeah, there it is. Who's our ichthyologist? Fish study. And actually, this is a really big lab in Moss Landing. Many students come here because it's a very well-known place to study fish. Okay, next slide. Chemical oceanography, this Kenneth Cole used to be the director of Moss Landing, really one very important figure in our lab. And finally, we have a librarian who's actually shared with the Marine Laborarories Research Institute. All right, go ahead. This is me, a little bit about what I do. I have, my lab works a lot of coastal processes. Our motto is we study and lick, because we lick rocks, dirt rocks, and everything is dead below and above the sea. And I'm doing a lot of work on the coastal environments, especially in the Monterey Bay, by looking at beach dynamics, how it changes through time, especially in relation to the closure of the Seamex plant. Have you heard about the Seamex plant? You know that, okay, you know that that's the last sand mining operation on the coast of the United States. A major sink for sand. We don't even really know how much sand they've been taking out from the ocean, from the system. So they're closing it in the next couple of years. And so we're going to be looking at the perturbation related to the closure of this plant, which indeed can decelerate some of the fastest erosional rate in the country. Southern Monterey Bay has about 1 meter per year of erosion. It's an incredible thing. The other work that we're doing in my lab is around coastal use. You can see here me with a couple of students, and we're looking at marsh restoration. And I'll talk more a little about this later. So those are two of the things that my lab does. We are a marine lab, so we work in the ocean a lot. We have a pretty large fleet of small vessels, ranging from our John Marlin, that's 57 feet, to lots of inflatables. We go to different places in the world, like Baja California, for our classes. We tow our boats. Next slide. We also have an amazing new facility, which is an aquaculture center, one of the few in the country, in which we can pump water directly from the ocean and grow different types of organisms. And again, it's related to the sustainability approach. And finally, we have research diving. We dive a lot, we go underwater, we look and we, a lot of rocks. I look at rocks when I dive, but that's me with my student. But there's a lot of diving activity related to the research that we do. And as I said, that map there shows where we were in 2015. So again, we work local to understand global. I mean, that's kind of the way we approach. And the nice thing about Monterey Bay is that there's so much diversity that you can really learn about global processes. So here's some numbers about the stuff we do in terms of public outreach and data operations. Next slide. Is that the next slide?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the second, this is, sorry, I'm also kind of blind. So this is the future. So that's what we're working on. There are a few initiatives that I'd like to discuss with you. First of all, we would like to develop the Center for Aquaculture and make it really a very important facility for the entire CSU system, but also for other stakeholders in Monterey Bay. We are trying to get a new vessel. We used to have a very large oceanographic vessel called Schwanster, which was dismissed. We're trying now to get another large vessel for regional studies. We also, this is a really important thing, we're trying to build an academic village. We have no housing, essentially. That's one of the biggest problems around here, in general nowadays. So students they cannot come in the summer and take summer classes because they don't know where to live. So one of the things we'd like to do is to develop a center where people can come and stay. Also, we can have a conference center. So can we become the hub for marine science in Monterey? We're trying to develop new courses, start a joint PhD program with UC Santa Cruz. And this is really important, increase diversity. We really need to increase diversity and get more of the community to come to our lab. Our lab is definitely not diverse, and the oceans are really the future of our society. So we need to involve more and more people from different cultural backgrounds. And of course, we need to support the students. It's really expensive to get a degree these days. The students are really under a lot of pressure because they have to take 4 jobs to be able to come to school. It's very expensive to come to school, it's very expensive to live here, as you guys know. So it's hard. And yeah, come to MLML. And as I said, next week we have open house. So it's a great time to come around, walk around and talk to people and have fun. Okay, so that's my first part of the presentation. I have a short video, which is a really cool one, which we'll play, hopefully, next. And there should be audio, which, so let me get down there and see if I can help the game. And if you have any questions, please ask them. Okay, so you click next, and then go to the next slide, and then you move around, yeah, because you need to replay,
There.
and then make sure there is. So I don't know about the audio, but what else?
Can you guys hear that?
You know, you go underwater, and it's like the most beautiful thing you've ever seen.
It's an alien world to me, and it's just fascinating to study.
The ocean is such a huge part of who we are and where we live.
The whole planet is one connected system. So in a very direct and real way, what we understand about the oceans is really important to our continued survival.
Moss Landing Marine Laboratories is where students and faculty explore the ocean's beauty and mystery and pursue answers to some of its most critical questions.
For 50 years, Moss Landing Marine Labs has been training scientists to solve problems and research issues associated with oceans.
Moss Landing is a master's program for marine science, drawing from a consortium of 7 California State University campuses.
The lab has grown dramatically from what used to be a relatively small group of faculty and students into a much larger group of researchers. The one thing that I think that hasn't changed for the lab is it's retained what our former director, John Martin, used to say is the spirit of Moss Landing. We're all in it together. We can all work together to do something great. And that's, I think, what makes Moss Landing Marine Labs really unique.
The labs range from the biological to the physical, with 8 core labs and many more adjunct ones. This diverse range of fields attracts a diverse range of students and faculty.
The one thing that kind of draws us all together is that we all love what we do.
Moss Landing is definitely special. I still think it's awesome that we see so many whales right off of our front deck.
Nestled along the shores of the Monterey Bay, Moss Landing literally has a world of wonders lapping at its doorstep.
It's spectacular, and it offers so many different opportunities for us to explore what's happening in the oceans.
So for a marine scientist, this is probably one of the most fascinating and beautiful places you can study marine science.
Just offshore and over 2 miles deep lies the Monterey Bay Submarine Canyon, with its unusual and mysterious creatures. And in the thriving marshes and shallow waters just east of the lake, life in the Elkhorn Slough is more familiar.
Moss Landing Marine Labs is unique in that one of its fundamental commitments is getting people in the field and making it possible to not have barriers to different explorations. We try to make it a fundamental goal to get people outside, to give them the tools so that they can explore.
Moss Landing's fleet of vessels and students' access to them make the lab unique among their peers.
I'm able to go out diving whenever I need to. I can pretty independently go and just do my research and use the facilities that we have, which is great.
Like most universities, classroom instruction is the foundation of learning. But at Moss Landing, it's only half the lesson.
Here at Moss Landing, very few classes are actually done solely in the classroom. Almost all of our classes are integrated to include laboratory field and classroom activities.
Learning how to run a transit, collect samples, and identify species are building blocks students will need for careers in science.
It's really learning by doing the repetitiveness of diving again and again, but also the diversity of going to a new location every day and having new dishes. Those things get students excited. They realize that everything they do is relevant, and I think they help to mold the type of scientist you become.
These learning opportunities extend far beyond the central coast of California.
The Antarctic really is a magical place, and it kind of embodies what the oceans mean to me.
Research or adjunct faculty at the lab outnumber tenure faculty 3 to 1. They don't teach classes, but they do offer students incredible opportunities.
My whole thing is to get everybody out into the field and doing field research. So I take students to Antarctica pretty frequently. We're an add-on of huge value in that we give students opportunities, we provide the ability to do thesis work in areas that wouldn't otherwise be covered, both geographically and just in disciplines.
From pole to pole, Moss Landing researchers are working across the globe and tackling some of the most critical issues facing marine environments.
So a lot of the work at Moss Landing Marine Labs is really focused on trying to understand and help solve some of the environmental problems that are caused by humans.
The problem that we're addressing is the aquatic invasive species.
Helping industry understand and prevent the spread of invasive species in ballast water is one of many collaborations between science and industry.
It is really fulfilling to be able to know that what I'm doing here, the issues that I'm tackling or helping to tackle, they really matter.
Research based at Moss Landing Shore Lab is helping the Monterey Abalone Company improve its aquatic farming practices.
Here is abalone farm under a paint, right? And it not only is it functioning, it works, it tastes great, it's sustainable, it's the right way to do this.
Having people to offer their experience, world-class marine scientists, to give you information and guidance is priceless, really.
Just having that interplay with industry it really just broadens their outlook. And also, if they go into conservation or if they go into management, they need to know how industry feels and what really drives that machine. And having that direct interaction at this point is really critical. It helps break the ice with them and allows them to see it.
Today, marine science is more important than ever, and capable marine scientists are in growing demand.
I think that the people that come out of here are extremely good scientists and extremely good technicians, and generally speaking, they're very good at their trade.
New things are being discovered constantly every day, so I feel that's why this is where I want to be in the field. I want to be in to help with that research.
Moss Landing has a myriad of opportunities that are really limited only by your imagination.
Building skills and building knowledge, and working together in one of the most beautiful and interesting places on the planet. That's the spirit of Moss Landing.
Right, so I can take questions. I also have a few more slides, but if you guys are tired, it's about what comes to do with the restoration we're doing there, but it's very kind of specific. I don't know when.
How about a couple questions? Yeah, I have questions. I have a question. I'd like to know, are we winning the battle? Is the ocean, what's the health of the ocean? Is that too big a question?
I mean, I teach a class in climate change every year now, and I started more than 10 years ago. And from the point of view of some of the major threats that threaten our oceans, such as ocean acidification, sea level rise, expansion of the oxygen minimum zone, so anoxia, is not going well. Well, it's going to go well for two reasons. One is because we understand more and more. Every year there's really a much better understanding. So if you're following the climate change discourse, there's an organization called the IPCC, you probably heard about it, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is an amazing source of information and a very non-biased international body of scientists and policymakers, which releases every 4 years about the status of climate on the planet. And it's becoming, when I started teaching this class, for instance, one of the things that wasn't clear was the role of humans in climate change. So, and the IPCC was describing the role of humans as likely. Now it's certain. So we do know for certain that we do affect climate. So there's no more discussion. Anything you hear in the press that's about debate, there's no such a thing. The facts are clear, the science is clear. It's the same science that allows you to take medicines, drive your car, the physics, the chemistry, everything is well known. So, the scientists have no doubts about that. There are questions about some of the details, in terms of projecting future climate change scenarios, because it's really hard to understand the future. And so, that's why we hindcast. But what is clear is that the trajectory is not good. But we do have so the good news is that we do have a chance to make a difference, and so the Paris Agreement actually was a step in that direction. I was very happy to be part of this last year when it was actually finally agreed upon by many countries, and then, as you know, 2 years ago, sorry, and then, as you know, the Trump administration, for instance, decided to pull out from the agreement. And the agreement tries to keep the global temperature for the next 50, 100 years within 2 degrees centigrade, which, seems like not a lot, but it's actually really important. So, politics is what will make a difference in the future. There's no doubt that unless we make an effort as societies to change the way we use fossil fuels and we deal with many of the aspects that relate to our everyday life, we are able to curb these trends. The trends are really clear. So I'm sorry. I'm trying to be optimistic, but.
Do we know why the canyon is so deep, and is there some relationship between the canyon and the fault? And what is it like living at the edge of a fault line? Are there any upsides to it?
We have plans for tonight, because I can stay here. I can talk forever. So that's a beautiful question. And the canyon, that's really, one of the canyons is kind of an iconic feature. And because Shepard in the 50s was one of the first scientists that kind of, first of all, we didn't know it existed until pretty recently, until about 100 years ago. People were doing soundings, so they knew there was some valley underwater, but, it really became clear what it was, due to the Second World War, when we were trying to build the submersible things in Moss Landing, that was one of the ideas. But, so the origin of the canyon, so the canyon is a very complex feature, and the head is kind of one part of it, but actually there's a very much deeper and broader extension further in the deep ocean. And one quick answer is that yes, it's all about faulting, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many people. So faulting provides the weak point where erosion can make its way. Part of the canyon is actually exposed during sea level low stand. That's when sea level drops. That happens about every 100,000 years. You probably heard that like 20,000 years ago the Earth was glaciated. Actually, I do have a slide here on the wall. Can you click? Actually, this slide here, I knew it. So this is the Monterey Bay. You recognize this is Monterey Peninsula. This is the bay. This is the present coastline. This is Santa Cruz. So this is a paleogeographic map. So that's what we do, what geologists do to take you back on time. In a time machine, and that shows how the bay looked like 16,000 years ago. The coastline was all the way in the middle of what is now the shelf, because sea level is much lower, about 50 meters lower, because much of the water was locked into the ice sheets in Antarctica and in the Arctic. Then eventually, because of the cycle through which the Earth has been going through for the last ages, water started melting, and that's why sea level rose. So this part of the canyon was actually a river. So the head of the canyon was a river, but just a tiny bit of it. It was connected to Alcosul, actually, to the Carneros River. which was actually connected to the San Benito River, which is really, the place where you guys are is an incredible place. Because of the faulting, the rivers have been rearranging through time constantly. For instance, I don't know if you know that, but the Pajaro River used to be actually the Corralitos Creek. So the Corralitos Creek used to empty in the water, and the present Pajaro River was actually emptying in Alconsul. Alconsul was a river. And then the cool thing is this: if you go forward about 8,000, back to 8,000 years ago, which is yesterday, literally, because there were people living here. There were people living in Moss Landing. So if you come to Moss Landing, you'll see when you enter to the left, there's a bunch of really cool artifacts and evidence of the place being colonized by indigenous people, because it was an island. It was an island, and it was in this big estuary that was connected to the Salinas River. The Salinas were actually an estuary. It was going all the way out to King City, the Pajaro River, and the Alcalá Stream. So this whole thing here was an estuarine system. So one thing that you learn by looking at geology is how much the landscape has changed in the last 2,000 years, and how we are part of this evolution. Things are not fixed in time, and that's really important, especially when you do restoration. Because restoration has a really good intent. Sometimes when we think that we want to stop, we want to freeze things in time. But, that's not the way the Earth works. The Earth moves constantly, especially rivers and the coastline. So, anyway, I took a tangent, but I had this slide, so that's really cool. If you think about this, you were standing down on the coastline and thinking that a few thousand years ago, the coastline was, miles further offshore.
Wow. See, speaking of the coastline and the Monterey Sanctuary, what's your opinion on oil drilling and the possibility of it happening in our lifetime?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, there are different reasons. One is that there's not really a good oil reservoir. I can guarantee you there's no way. It's not viable, and it's not. It's posturing. It's not. Fossil fuels are economically becoming a burden, and eventually, so I wouldn't be worried about that. Including, one time I was giving a talk, we were asking, what are you guys about fracking in California? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen in King City or anywhere else.
Patricia had her hand up. Pat, did you have a question?
Yeah, well, actually, that's what I was going to mention was when you're talking about drilling off the continental shelf, how far is the continental shelf from the coastline there? And if you think it for sure it's not going to happen, I'll put worry about that all the time.
It's kind of fun in case. No. So the continental shelf in California is very narrow. It's basically non-existent compared to the East Coast, where the continental shelf can be up to 100 miles wide. Here it's at most it's like 20 miles, 30 miles wide. So yeah, that would be like next to the coastline. But as I said, it's not viable. It's not. I mean, in Southern California it happens. I mean, they're drilling. I mean, they're exploiting oil in Santa Barbara, offshore Santa Barbara, and Los Angeles. I mean, it's not that it's not happening. It's already happening. And there's all the problems related there. But as far as I understand, and talking to colleagues that are in the field, I don't think it's viable. Nobody's going to do it.
So because of the earthquake potential, or they wouldn't do it, or because there's not oil there, why wouldn't they do it?
It's not. It's too expensive to drill. Drilling offshore is very expensive. Besides all the potential hazard that you mentioned, especially in places like Mississippi, the Gulf region. But it's very expensive. So when you have to pay, when you have to use, and it's a ratio between how many gallons of gasoline you need to use in order to construct 1 gallon of gasoline. Essentially, that's what it is. The cost versus the benefit. And it's way too expensive. So offshore drilling is very, very expensive practice. I don't think they're going to do it in California.
Can you talk a little bit about the desalinization plant and how the Marine Lab is studying it? Or?
Okay, thank you for the question. So the Marine Lab is a California State University institution. So we don't have anything to do with issues that are directly related to it have an economic or political impact. We can't. I mean, we're just, I'm a professor at the university. I'm a state employee. So we stayed actually pretty, we always try to be very impartial about everything because we're scientists. And although I have my own opinions, you have to always make sure that you separate your opinions or the way you see things from the facts. So having said that, there are different, you probably heard about that, there are different proposals about the desalinization plant. If you ask me, what's your question, what's my position about it?
What do you know about it, yeah, and what are the consequences of it, and
Right.
is it going forward?
So as far as I understand, a decision hasn't been made yet about desal, whether and where it's going to be located. There are different projects. One of them includes having the desal in Moss Landing. There's another one that it's about having desal in Marina. So there are different projects. I actually seen one, the one related to Moss Landing. Actually, there are two. I should state, not just one. And as far as I know, there's no decision that's been made. Maybe I'm not correct. You guys know more than I do. About what it implies. I mean, desalinization. Well, I'm all about conservation. So I should tell my opinion is that we need to conserve water rather than using gasoline to pump water through filters. I mean, to me, it's insane. And I say it from an ancient point of view. So I live in Coondale, and so when I drive to work, unfortunately I drive, I live on Black Road, and I get my car washed every morning, right? That's what I say. I have my car washed because there's like constant rain of sprinklers going on, because there's no regularity, there's no controls on the use of water in this county. I mean, in Monterey County. And so preserving water should be the first and foremost, and also understanding whether, a good example is, what is the value of water? Who pays for it? And the problem is that when water is free to access, no one pays for it. So I think you need to start pricing water. And people will start saving. And probably that will take care of a lot of those issues concerning water. So I will start with conservation. Desalinization is a possible alternative. It's a very expensive, environmentally expensive practice. You are using gasoline, again, you're pumping water through filters. Also, there are aspects related to the salt, the brines that are produced, which can have effects that we don't really understand completely, including erosion on seafloor, or just producing salty water in the ocean. And also, training a lot of water, so you're sucking in a lot of water, so that might actually affect phytoplankton, the ecology of many ecosystems in the ocean. So there are consequences which we don't really understand. So there are a few papers out there with beautiful class, but yeah. So I don't know. That's my answer. But maybe you guys know more than I do.
I think we have time for one more question.
It's not a question as much as a statement. Ivano talked about all the work that they do in relating with the other universities. As someone who lives in Elkhorn Slough and spends the time there, I'd just like to compliment Moss Landing Marine Labs on how much they've helped Elkhorn Slough National Estuarine Research Reserve. Not only with a lot of scanning with the project we had and giving free time to come over and look and the interest that you, Ivano, and Charlie had in it, but they allow us to keep our boat over at Moss Landing Marine Labs, small boats. They help us when we need things, and we get to work with their students. They work with us. So to me, Moss Landing Marine Labs is really special because they work with the community. They have really helped us as a reserve, but also other projects and students that are coming through, allowing them to use the boats and things like that. So
thank you.
Thank you.
There's so much time.
Oh yeah, I've read a lot about the saturation of the ocean with carbon, and at some point it's going to stop being a carbon sink, and therefore the amount of carbon being put in the atmosphere could go up dramatically. Do you know much about the science around that, and if that's a predictable date at all with the science we have right now?
Yeah, we just read a few papers. So the first part, absolutely. So one of the main greenhouse gases, which is carbon dioxide, which is only one, and has been absorbed by the ocean, about 2/3 since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. So the ocean has been acting as a capacitor, essentially. So much of the effects that might be related to the increase in CO2 in the atmosphere, which in turn increases what is called greenhouse effect, are being mediated by the oceans. But the price for the oceans is that the CO2 converts into carbonic acid, which means becomes acidic. The ocean becomes acidic. That's why acidification. We don't know yet whether the oceans are a net sink or source for carbon. So the ocean dynamics and the chemistry that's happening to it, and all the connection with the physical component, which is mixing between the atmosphere and the ocean, are so complex, and our understanding is so limited that we don't know whether the ocean are, if that's what you're asking about. But we do know that eventually the buffering ability of the ocean is going to fade, and I'm not sure I remember any specific prediction about it, but obviously there will be a point in which the ocean will be able to take up any more carbon dioxide because of the physics. But one thing that we don't know is that actually whether the ocean are net sink or source of carbon through respiration and primary productivity. So it's really common. I mean, one thing I want to remind everyone is that modern oceanography is started yesterday, really. I mean, I would say in the last 30, 40 years, we've kind of started getting a sense of what's happening out there. I mean, 2/3 of the planets are covered by the ocean. We just started accessing this part of the planet. So I know it's sometimes hard to believe it, but we really are at the beginning of understanding our planet. And we're doing it while we're modifying it really heavily. So we really don't understand what we're doing. So I don't know, maybe my answer is not what you were expecting. But definitely the buffering, definitely this buffer will saturate the CO2, and eventually more of the CO2 will go to the atmosphere. I mean, will be absorbed by the ocean, that's for sure. Okay, thank you.
Next video over the house?
I left some.
What time does it start?
It starts there at 8. Usually we start at 9.
Okay.
Saturday and Sunday. 9 to 5, 9 to 6. So you guys come over. It's great. Please. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say, Professor, that your idea about increasing the cost of water to conserve is probably the right way, but as an elected member of the Aromas Water District, I can tell you that raising prices for water has another set of circumstances, so we have to deal with it. So it's a political question. Right?
No, it is a political.
Yeah, that's exactly
That's what
right.
politics is for.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I also wanted to take a moment and introduce MJ Donahue, who's been down here doing Development Director, MJ, is that your title?
Yeah.
At the lab? Yeah. And he's helped Leslie and MJ were involved in another committee, and he helped us to get this set up, so we're really grateful. Thanks a lot.
Thank you guys enough for the work that you do out on the slough and the work that you do throughout the community, etc., and taking this kind of an approach to a challenging situation out of DC, etc. And like Ivano said, we don't get involved as a state institution in the politics, we get involved in the facts. And that's where we have to sit and live and thrive, quite frankly, because that's where our entire nation and our environment will eventually, if we embrace it, thrive. And so at the lab, we look at ourselves not as just a lab for the CSU, but your lab. We're your Marine Science Institute. And we do work globally, as Ivano said. And so please, come see us. We're open 24/7 pretty much, because you can walk around out on the boardwalk and everything else at the lab and see the incredible view and the whales spouting and breaching and everything else. But you can also pick the brains of the students when they're there during the day and they're walking around, they're lunching, etc., the faculty, etc. They're all very busy, but they're also passionate about what they do. They will take the time to talk to you, and you can set up tours, and you can do meetings there and everything else. Just reach out to me, and I'll make sure that you're connected in the way you need to, and you can take advantage of this incredible resource. It's an amazing place, and it cares deeply about where you live. So thank you so much.
One of the points that I want to make was about the need for housing. One of the real critical issues of Moss Landing Marine Lab, just like just about everywhere in Northern California, is the issue about housing. You know, there's been talk in APAL for a while about having an affordable housing working group that wants to sort of work on that issue and see if we can, if there's some community building that we can do around that. So I can tell you the steering committee is very interested if there's anyone who wants to sort of take that on as kind of an organizing, as sort of the organizing leader of that, we can certainly support you. So if anyone is, if that's a passion for someone to do, please see me or anyone in the steering committee. We would love to do it. That's really an important topic and kind of a thorny one, but it's one that we need to tackle. So I'd love to work with you on that. So we're going to take a minute here just to do updates on from the work groups on the kinds of things that they've been doing, all the work that's been going on. And I think I'd like to start with the climate change group because there's been a lot lately that's going on, and I think there's going to be some more coming up soon. So Seth and Molly, are you guys doing this? Thanks so much, you guys, for the lab.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Just want to put in a plug for the lab. If you haven't been there, it's a gorgeous place besides all the wonderful work they do. It's an amazing location. So APAL's climate action team has been in action this year.
We've educated ourselves.
We've marched.
We've lobbied.
We've watched climate action be abandoned on the national level, so we're focused on reducing our own local carbon footprint. We're joining thousands of cities and villages across the planet who are committing themselves to a carbon-free future.
We put on the Home Energy Efficiency Expo because energy efficiency is the most cost-effective way to cut carbon and saves money.
We're working with many of the largest electrical users in the Aromas and San Juan area, including the city of San Juan Bautista, the school district, and local businesses, helping them develop plans for installing solar electrical systems to meet their energy needs.
We are sponsoring the Electric Car Show at Marshall's on May 30th because transportation is one of our largest sources of carbon pollution. Technology has changed the equation, and it's now cheaper to drive an electric car than a gas-powered one, if you include maintenance and fuel costs in the equation.
We're committing to continue to blaze a trail to the carbon-free future for Aromas and San Juan Bautista. And maybe I could just ask the members of the climate team to stand up. I think there's a few of us here. We welcome other people to join us.
Thank you.
That's pretty impressive, huh? Let's see, I'd like to go next. Healthcare. Laura, do you want to you all want to hear or would you rather?
I'm fine. So, over this last year, we formed the Aromas chapter of the group Healthcare for All California, which is a statewide group that's actually been in existence for almost 20 years to advocate for single-payer healthcare. They had a little trouble with us in the beginning because they've only had county chapters and they didn't quite know what to do with Aromas. They didn't even know where to put them on the map, but we put them on the map. We put ourselves on the map, and so we are now a chapter of Healthcare for All. So the big thrust of our committee really has been to collaborate with the rest of Healthcare for All California on trying to push SB 562, which is a single-payer healthcare bill, which originally started in the state senate, passed the state senate, and then got stuck in the assembly, and the Speaker of the Assembly really would not release it for a vote because he felt that it was incomplete. And so that's really been where we are right now. So I went to a leadership meeting of a steering committee meeting of the Healthcare for All group, and they are now collaborating with multiple groups in the state to advocate for single payer. So there's the Courage Campaign, Unite Here, Our Revolution, the Democratic Socialists, the Healthy California Campaign, which is the group of the California Nurses Association that actually started this push for single payer through SB 562. And the decision was to continue to push for this bill. But in addition, what they've done is they've formed a Healthy California PAC to raise money and support candidates who agree to advocate and be supporters of single payer in the state legislature. So that's a big area that's being worked on right now. And various chapters and groups across the state are still canvassing in their communities for single-payer healthcare, educating people as to the benefits of a single-payer system, as well as advocating for the candidates who will support this system. So the fight goes on. It's by no means is it over, even though this bill is being held. There have been a couple of other bills that are now being introduced in the state legislature to sort of tweak around the edges and get closer to single payer, but we're still pushing very hard for the single payer bill. So I encourage anybody who's interested to join us and come up with your ideas about how we can push things for single payer care. Thank you.
So let's stay with the Stapleton family. Paul, do you want to do an update on the immigration?
Sure, but I'm going to stay here if it's okay with everybody. The first thing that I want to talk about with immigration and education committees is the joint effort to get the school district to be a sanctuary school district. It was very effective and fast, happy to say. And the other thing about the education committee is that they've been working on DACA, which is very important to our students. They've gotten some help from CSUMB had a student and a faculty person come up and talk to them. We had over 20% of the school turn out for that meeting. And so that's also been working out. And the other thing we're working on is tuition-free community colleges.
Yeah.
That is something which, California is behind Arkansas, believe it or not, on tuition-free community colleges. It's just ridiculous. And it certainly can be done, and Arkansas has proved it. The other thing about the immigration is that we've had a meeting here about knowing your rights. It is important that people who are under pressure from ICE understand what their rights are if ICE comes into the community. And there's also been an emergency response team, which I probably won't go into because it's complicated. It's not to do anything, do any action, but it's to observe and record when ICE comes into the community what people should be aware of what they're doing. So they take pictures and write down stuff, and they're very, I get their tweets or whatever they're called all the time, their notifications. And so that's very important. And that's kind of what the two committees have been doing. And I'm glad that there's overlaps. That's really great. Okay, thank you.
Jennifer Colby's on the school board.
Yeah, but I want to talk about the Real Work Film Festival because there's some films about DACA, there's films about, there's the Dolores film coming back to Watsonville, and a film I would like people to, maybe we can send some scouts. I didn't get the film here in our series for Aromas. There's a film called Tomorrow, and it's about communities like ours all over the world doing things for change. It's really interesting. So if you want to see films in the next 2 weeks, the Real Work Film Festival, I have these for you. And Tomorrow is playing at the Unitarian Church, not tomorrow, April 30th. But I just wanted you to know, progressive films.
The Unitarian Church in Aptos or the one in?
The one in Monterey.
Okay, thanks. And you can put those on the table. All right, great, so you can pick them up. All right, Defending Democracy, Vicki, Jennifer.
I'll just stand here, mine is short.
hear me? Right, Defending Democracy Committee. So we formed early on, a year ago. We have a small dedicated group of devoted people who meet once a month and we discuss current issues. So we'd love to have more people join us. As you know, we've put on the panel hosted the APAL panel for local media. And a lot of you attended and that was quite interesting, the loss of local media and its effect overall. But every month we read, well, during the month we share articles electronically and then we get together once a month and discuss them. So while we're not, aside from supporting all of the other committees and marching and whatnot, I think it's really more a matter of staying educated and making certain that we don't get complacent about all of this stuff that's happening around us. So much that we can't hardly keep up with it. So from one horrific story to the next. Ask us about it. Anyway, welcome to join us.
Doing a quick scan, I think that's all of them. My memory's not what it used to be, but I think that's all the groups, right? We've also, over the years, had a couple committees, one on women's rights that had a couple actions, and then it sort of, folks got busy. And I think there might have been another group here or there that, because we're such a small community, there's a lot to do, and not many of us to do it. So, but we're open to anything that anyone has passion about that would like to do and like to form a group and start working on it. We're here to support it. There's plenty of people who support it and see what we can get done. Wow, we've done a lot in a year.
Yeah.
Okay.